Chicago Bulls fans are confused, and rightfully so. After being a team that is in prime position to blow everything up and start over from new, they decided to stand pat at the trade deadline. And it's confusing a lot of Chicago Bulls fans. So what is their future going to look like? Are they screwed? Is there a path to contention for the Chicago Bulls? We're here to discuss all of it. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. We're almost at 900,000 subscribers. And now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. For the Super Bowl, PrizePicks is blessing us with an easy way to make $100. All Patrick Mahomes needs is one passing yard in the Super Bowl for a square to hit, which means he's pretty much a free square. First, download PrizePicks and use my promo code microphone when you sign up to get up to $100 deposit match on your initial deposit, and then make these picks really quickly before they change the lines on them. So for me, I'm pairing Mahomes' free square with Isaiah Pacheco, who's had at least one touchdown in his last 5 games, so that's easy, and Christian McCaffrey, who has had more than 88.5 rushing yards in 4 of his last 5 games. Of course, I give away all my picks for free on Instagram, and I highly recommend you turn on notifications for my Instagram story so you can get the picks quickly before they move the lines and you lose your advantage. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The Chicago Bulls are one of the most heartbreaking teams in NBA history. I mean, we are now 2 seasons removed from the magical 2021 to 2022 season, where the Chicago Bulls looked like the team to beat in the East, at least until Lonzo Ball got injured. I can't believe it's been 2 years since this happened, but Lonzo Ball would miss the 2021 to 2022 season. He would miss all of last season, and now this season, it looks like there might be a chance to return. In the meantime, the Chicago Bulls were cratering, boasting one of the worst offensive ratings in the NBA, but one of the best defensive ratings in the NBA last year, and currently being one of the most mid teams in the NBA in terms of offensive and defensive rating, 21st in offensive rating and 15th in defensive rating. At the time that we're recording this video, the Chicago Bulls are 9th place in the Eastern Conference, so they would have an opportunity to get a playoff spot via the play-in tournament, but it's not necessarily an attractive place to be. The result? Well, many GMs and scouts around the league were expecting the Chicago Bulls to blow it up. And to be honest, they have a remarkable set of individuals to trade for a plethora of assets. In the beginning of the year, it looked like the Chicago Bulls were going to trade Zach LaVine. And once Zach LaVine trade rumors started, then you had the likes of Nikola Vucevic, DeMar DeRozan. He's going to be a free agent during the offseason. You have to trade him. Well, if you're going to trade all of those individuals, Alex Caruso could quite literally play on any team in the NBA and will be a fit for each and every team in the NBA. The Bulls had a path to getting a plethora of first-round picks and potentially starting a rebuild, which is what you should do when you have all these assets and all of the salary allocated to these players without a clear chance at winning in the NBA playoffs. But it seems like that's not going to happen. This all really started when Zach LaVine got a gigantic $215 million contract extension in the summer of 2022, because since then it seems like their investment in Zach LaVine wasn't necessarily worth it. Don't get me wrong, when healthy, Zach LaVine is a solid player in the NBA, but there's been a gigantic drop off in his production since the last time he was an all-star during the 2021 to 2022 season, and the player that he was over the past 2 seasons. And as a result, not many teams are willing to trade for him and his gigantic contract. Eventually, we found out that there were rumors of Zach LaVine getting traded to the Detroit Pistons. What did Zach LaVine do? Well, he essentially pulled a Rob Gronkowski. For those of you guys that don't know, and we do this stuff on my Microphone football channel, yes, I cover football on a separate channel called Microphone. A few years ago, the New England Patriots were experimenting with the idea of trading Rob Gronkowski to the Detroit Lions, a team that was the worst team in the NFL at the time. The moment Rob Gronkowski found this out, he retired right on the spot. And Zach LaVine did something very similar here. You see, the moment he found out that there was a chance that he was going to get traded to the Detroit Pistons, he opted for season-ending surgery. You can't trade a player that is opting for season-ending surgery, and that's that. So it seems like Zach LaVine wants to stay. But what about the rest of the Chicago Bulls? What about DeMar DeRozan? He's probably going to be gone during this offseason, right? Well, not necessarily. This is what DeMar DeRozan said on a potential extension.
It's kind of like with your spouse.
I was gonna say relationship.
Yeah, it's a relationship. It's like, we need to do the work on this, baby. All right, let's figure this thing out. You know, you want me, I want you. We're going. The love is there.
Now, in the case of DeMar DeRozan, I don't necessarily think it's a foregone conclusion that he leaves. You have to understand that DeMar DeRozan has experienced the most success he's had since he was a member of the Toronto Raptors with the Chicago Bulls. I don't think you could automatically assume that a 34-year-old DeMar DeRozan is going to be seeking out other pastures. You might be thinking that, hey, he might want to go to his hometown LA and help LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Bronny James. If we get Bronny James. Are we getting Bronny James? To win a potential championship. There's a chance that DeMar DeRozan stays. And then there was the fact that the Chicago Bulls actually attempted to trade some of these players. Like, for example, they said that they wanted an OG Anunoby type of deal for Alex Caruso. And according to Zach Lowe of ESPN, he reported that the Chicago Bulls could get as many as 2 first-round picks for Alex Caruso's services due to extreme interest. Adrian Wojnarowski also echoed this statement this past Monday. If they're going to trade Alex Caruso, they want a lot for him. Like an OG Anunoby type of deal is what has been subscribed to me. And I think he fits anywhere, and there are no shortage of teams who would love to get Caruso. So this is a gigantic contradiction because OG Anunoby was traded for a 2nd-round pick, Emmanuel Quickley, and RJ Barrett. There weren't any 1st-round picks included here, but RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley are 2 young starting caliber players who are under 24 years old. So I'm assuming that's what he means, either 1st-round picks or starting caliber players that are relatively young. So at the end, what did the Chicago Bulls do? Well, they didn't trade DeMar DeRozan, they didn't trade Alex Caruso, they didn't trade Nikola Vucevic, who also seems to believe that the Chicago Bulls have enough. Like, straight up, he didn't want to see the Chicago Bulls break up because he believed that they had enough. And you have to understand, this is just a wild thing to hear from a team that is currently 9th in the East. And the craziest part is, it wasn't just DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic that had value. Andre Drummond also had a tremendous amount of value. The Lakers were interested, the Celtics were interested, the Suns were interested, the Mavericks were interested. So the fact that not a single move was made was pretty head-scratching to say the least. And the craziest part is the Chicago Bulls have not made a single trade for a player since August of 2021. So what's the plan here is what you might be wondering. Well, the only plan at this point has to be the Chicago Bulls really banking on Lonzo Ball returning and being the game changer that he was 2 years ago. Now, we've seen some footage of Lonzo Ball so far, and obviously he's definitely working through some rust. He's getting some shots up in practice over here. I think it's a very bold strategy to assume that Lonzo is going to come back and magically fix everything. But as a basketball fan, I've seen crazier stuff before. And the only reason I'm throwing out this bizarre idea to you guys to begin with is I really don't know what else the Chicago Bulls are angling for. I mean, you have the opportunity to sell on this core of Vucevic, DeRozan, Caruso, Drummond, and LaVine and get multiple 1st-round picks in return. I'm assuming the deal for LaVine wasn't there, but you could have blown up the core around him and started selling on these players during the deadline. The interest was there, and this was a trade deadline where the best trade that was made at the deadline was Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks being traded to the Knicks. And that was a great trade, nothing against that. It's just there was a lot of demand for players like Caruso and Drummond and even potentially DeMar DeRozan. So the fact that they didn't do it means that they're banking on Lonzo Ball coming back and hopefully being the difference maker. But at the same time, Lonzo Ball has been ruled out for this season. So are they planning on continuing to run it with this core and maybe next year they can compete with Lonzo? Do you understand why I'm so confused about the Chicago Bulls plan? It's because the Chicago Bulls don't make any sense here. Any other team that was in their position would say, okay, we gave it our best. We're a mid team this year. Let's move on and let's try our absolute best to set ourselves up for the future. But the Chicago Bulls are keeping the existing core the way it is, and a lot of the players seem content with the way it is. So I really don't know. Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think the Chicago Bulls are doing? Because I'm as confused as anyone here. If you're a Bulls fan, what would you want them to do? What do you think they should have done? I personally think they should have blown up this core and try to maximize the value that they had here and try to set themselves up for a good rebuild. Because at the end of the day, you want to be the best team in the NBA or the very worst team in the NBA. You don't want to be in the middle. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.